Do you want to lower your Amazon PPC ACoS in no time? Amazon just rolled out a new feature called Audiences that makes ads more profitable. And in our tests, we've seen ACoS drop 15% up to 80%.
I'm David Goldenberg and I've been in digital marketing for over 20 years. I recently led the marketing for a seller who grew from 30 million a year to 57 million a year. Still work with them through my agency.
So let's do 6 things. First, get into the audience differences between sponsored products and sponsored brands. Second, let's see how to use these audiences with new or existing campaigns. Third, let's understand in depth how each audience can do best. Fourth, let's look at combination strategies. Use these audiences in parallel to other targeting to make super profitable campaigns. Fifth, let's see some actual results that we're getting with these audience adjustments in both sponsored products and sponsored brands. Finally, stay tuned to the end to avoid a sales-killing trap that even pro advertisers are falling for and losing loads of profit. So first, the differences. In sponsored products, you can target clicked or added to cart but didn't buy, purchased your brand's product, and third, high likelihood to purchase based on recent shopping activity. Now that third one is only available in sponsored products. In sponsored brands, you can target clicked or added to cart as well, but didn't buy, purchased your brand's product based on the last 90 days, new to brand shoppers who haven't bought from the brand in the trailing 12 months, and that one is only available in sponsored brands.
Okay, so here's how we add audiences to a new campaign. I'm going to show this first of all for sponsored products and then for sponsored brands. So I go to create campaign and leave just the default settings for now. You need to come down over here to bid adjustments. Okay, and while you're familiar usually with your top of search, rest of search, and product pages, there's this new tab over here called audiences. And this is where you can change things around by choosing the audience you want. So you can go to clicked or added brands product, high likelihood to purchase, or purchase brands product, right? So if I choose this, for example, then I can add my adjustment, right? Notice that it also works in parallel with your default bidding strategy. So if I'm doing up and down, then my 30% is like plus 60%, right? So it can be a 23-cent bid can become 46 cents, and then 30% more of that gets me to 60 cents over here. So you need to keep that in mind if you guys are using up and down, which has a place. That's a video for another time. You need to know also that you can't choose multiple audiences. It's just one audience per campaign, and therefore what I recommend in most cases, either start with clicked or added brands product to cart, or high likelihood to purchase brands product unless you're a absolutely massive brand like Lego or Adidas, something like that. It's pretty unlikely that this is going to generate a significant amount of traffic for you and have any significant impact to your sales. I know this for having worked with a seller that sells 8 figures a year on Amazon, and we run purchased brand product, and it gets very little traffic both in sponsored products and sponsored brands. It's not such a useful audience generally speaking. I'll put an asterisk with that and say that my experience is mainly focused on selling durables. So if you're in consumables, skincare, supplements, office supplies, school supplies, etc., toilet paper, that kind of thing, then your mileage may vary. It might be a lot more useful for you. And again, I plan to talk about that with you in just a few minutes. Okay, so that's how you set it up. Pretty straightforward for sponsored products. Now let's go back and do this for sponsored brands. So again, I have my campaign creation screen. I choose create campaign, and okay, fill in all the details, what have you. I scroll past goals, past sites. This is a new feature we can talk about. I don't want cost control. That's a little pro tip in passing. Campaign bid adjustments. This is where you're going to see it. So again, increased bids for audiences built by Amazon. Notice that by default, they're adding 100% for new to brand shoppers. This is different between sponsored products and sponsored brands. There wasn't a default over there added with sponsored products. New to brand shoppers is generally going to convert lower. So unless you're specifically trying to grow market share or to launch a product, then this is not really particularly a useful audience. So I would focus basically on just clicked or added brands product to cart for sponsored brands in most cases, again with durable products. If you have something consumable, so purchase brands product could be more valuable for you. In some cases, I don't know why it is, but if you are editing a draft of a sponsored brand campaign, okay, so you, your colleague, started a campaign, you didn't have time to finish, or you wanted somebody else on the team to review it, then campaign bid adjustments isn't necessarily visible the way it is right now. And it's a strange thing, but you basically need to launch the campaign. Once it's launched, you go back and edit it and add the audiences. So that's what we're going to do now. So you can see that over here we loaded up a draft campaign. It's just a pretend thing for Amazon Echo. And if I scroll down, I've got goals, sites, bidding, ad group settings, ad format, landing page, products. Okay, my targeting, keyword targeting. You notice that neither under the ad group settings nor the campaign level settings, I'm not seeing in any of these places an option to adjust audiences. Okay, and it's not under targeting either, or keyword targeting. Obviously it wouldn't be under negative. And then I'm already at the end of the page over here with my creative, and it's just not over here. This is what happens from a draft. And so what you need to do is basically just submit it for review. Okay. What I'm interested in is to come here to edit campaign after I've launched that. And from the edit campaign, I have my bid adjustments tab over here, which is also how you do this for a normal existing campaign. And you can go change audience. There's no select audience, there's just change audience, because again, you can only choose one audience versus another. And you have the same options that I showed you from the campaign creation. Click to add it to cart, new to brand, and purchased. Like I said, this one is the most valuable one for most advertisers. So you can do, say, for example, 30% to start out, adjust bids, and there you go. Now, when you want to adjust things later on, monitor performance, you need to come back to this bid adjustments page over here in the campaign. Unfortunately, for the time being, Amazon have not added this stuff into the bulk sheets, and you won't be able to see it there. It's also not in the sponsored brand reports. So this is the current option for doing that. I imagine eventually they'll get around to adding audiences into reports and or bulk, but that's not the case currently.
Now let's see how to use each audience to its full potential.
I want to start with a super powerful audience that is basically low-hanging fruit. Clicked or added to cart. It's almost my favorite audience, and let's see why. So 1, clicked or added to cart but didn't buy in the last 90 days. Here's what we're going to cover for this audience. What the audience is, what products the audience is best suited for, and how to bid. So these are shoppers who engaged with your listing, but they didn't purchase. For most products, especially above the range of impulse purchases, say over $30, $40, this is huge. People often browse and compare before buying a higher priced item, but they don't bookmark what they saw before, even if they liked it. Now, the cheaper your product is, okay, both in dollar terms and in comparison to competitors, the lower you should bid to begin with. If pencils sell for $1, how many buyers need time to think, do you think? Right? But if you're selling furniture for $150+, you need to consider, and you can even consider adding 40% plus for these clicked but didn't purchase audiences. Okay. Now, in our testing, this audience lowered the ACoS by about 15% compared to non-targeted traffic, and it's such an easy win, as you can see, right, how quick it is to set this kind of thing up. Now, let's talk about customers who've already bought from you and why the strategy changes for home decor, right? Lasting goods, durables versus consumables. So second is purchase your brand's product. And here's what we're going to do. Again, we're going to talk about what the audience is, what products the audience is best suited for, how to bid. So they're past customers. They really like your brand. Amazon doesn't tell you what they bought though, but from our testing, it seems that they probably bought this product, maybe related products. Okay. For durable goods like home decor, what you can do is try cross-selling. If they bought your main product like a side table or a sofa, they're probably not going to buy a second one. But you can sell related products like a plastic organizer that fits in the drawer of your side table. If you're selling school supplies, consumables, then this audience is for reorders, and you can bid really way more aggressively because buyers convert at a much higher rate. And if you're in consumables, so you can push both your main as well as your secondary products with this audience. So again, to use it, you just need to select your purchased your brand's product and make your bid adjustment over there. I said around 15% for durable goods, 20%, and maybe 30% or even 40% for consumable products. Now, keep in mind that your audience of past buyers is usually going to be much smaller than people who clicked add to cart, because there are always more people who showed interest than ones who actually forked over money. I'm telling you this so don't go blasting plus 100% bid increase if you don't immediately see loads of traffic on this in comparison to the clicks or add to cart. Now, you need to check back in on these periodically, and what you want to do in that case, both for the first audience and for the previous one, is you want to adjust the bid usually upwards if you are finding that the performance is good by maybe 10% a week, and then monitor and repeat. Now let's talk about the fourth audience type, available only in sponsored products. This is my favorite by far, and it's high likelihood to purchase based on Amazon's AI. They predict buyers based on the recent shopping activity. So how to use it? Again, you just go to the sponsored products placement adjustments tab, you go to audiences, you choose change audience and select that one, and you start with, let's say, 20%, 30% bid adjustment. To monitor, again, you need to come back to this tab in a week and couple of weeks and see how your performance is going. Next, let's look at a predictive audience that's available only in sponsored brands. It's a great complement to my favorite audience number 4, and it's new to brand shoppers. Like I said, it's only for sponsored brands, and this audience targets people who haven't bought from you in the past 12 months. For durable goods, these are basically lower value audiences, but there are situations where this audience can be extremely valuable. First of all, for market share growth, if you're pushing to win the bestseller badge, which can give you a huge increase in conversion rate, average orders from new customers, so these people can help you get there. And that badge, again, is super, super valuable to your business in dollars, I mean. With consumables, it's also really valuable because what you can do is you can use these audience to increase your buyer base, right? If you want to hit higher order quantities with your suppliers, so it's great to have repeat orders, right? But they're probably not going to double their order size, right? If somebody is getting a tub of face cream every month, every other month, they're probably not going to start ordering 2 tubs of face cream every month, every other month. So you need to increase your new to brand buyers. And in situations like that, where you want to hit higher minimum order quantities with your suppliers for better rates, or, to increase your total volume of sales, maybe ahead of an exit, something like that you're trying to get to in the next year or 2 years. So this audience can be really valuable in achieving that. So how to use it? Again, within sponsored brands, just select new to brand shoppers and adjust your bids based on your own growth goal. Okay. Now remember, both in sponsored products and in sponsored brands, you can only set one audience bid adjustment per campaign. And so depending on your goals, you need to choose strategically. And we're going to get into that soon because it can just allow some beautiful combinations that increase profit, that increase click-through rates, conversion rates, all that stuff. And that's, point 4 when we get to the supercharged, super profitable campaigns, right? Even more than just normal audience bid adjustments profitable. Okay. Now, how to monitor with this stuff? You check on a weekly basis how we've been doing. You can check every 2 weeks and then adjust as you see fit, usually going up in increments, maybe of 5, 10%, 15%. Okay, let's talk about supercharged campaigns. Now, what a supercharged campaign is a campaign that combines different kinds of targeting or other features in Amazon's ad system, along with your audience bid adjustments. So the first one I want to talk about is where you take placement targeted sponsored products or brands in combination with the audience have clicked or added to cart but didn't buy. Now, if you've been to an open air market that caters to tourists, you have seen that when a person shows some interest in product, turns or walk out, shopkeeper suddenly offers a last minute discount. He doesn't want them going to competitors' shops. So here's your chance to get your engaged prospects back. And once they went to those shops, you can combine that with a time-limited deal and day parting to make their targeting effect even stronger. So a deal on the day of the week that you see the most sales, right, that converts the best for you, for example, Sunday, and create the campaign ahead of time with just $1 budget to make sure it gets approved and you're ready to go when it's time. So then you increase the budget on the day, okay, that your deal is meant to run, for example, on the Sunday. Then what happens is your ad shows up on your competitors' product pages to people who've shown interest and already clicked on your products before, okay? And now you're giving them an extra incentive. You're showing them a deal on the product, but also it's time limited, right? It's for today only. And so there's an urgency that they buy today to get the deal. So that can just do wonders for your conversion rate, your ACoS, and also for protecting your sales from being poached by competitors. And of course, you can repeat this on a weekly basis. You can be every Sunday, for example. Now, there's a additional supercharged campaign strategy I want to share with you. And that is where you take high likelihood to purchase. You combine that with a top of search placement adjustment to just skim the cream before the buyers spend their money elsewhere, right? You get the best people on your listing. You can also combine either high likelihood to purchase or past brand purchasers and click to add it to cart also with top of funnel keywords, for example, chair, art, etc. So you can compete more successfully on these vague, usually low conversion rate keywords. You manage to squeeze out a 5% conversion rate from keywords that most of your competitors are just getting a 3% conversion rate from. Assuming that your prices are similar, then your margins are also probably similar, then this is a way to earn more per click, and you can then spend more per click and just take away all that market share, really dominate the most popular keywords that are there at the top of funnel. Because they're usually low conversion rate. It's vague and there's just a range of what people could be looking to buy, whatever. And in many cases, they don't even just buy at that point. They do a follow-up search, a second follow-up search, they browse a bit and so on. But by combining these audiences with a top of search placement with keyword targeting on these vague keywords, so you can really do very well on keywords that everybody else is struggling with. I was just talking to one of our agency's PPC managers, and he proposed a very clever refinement on this for those of you who are in really competitive spaces and you just really want to skim the cream and you need to give up on a lot of the traffic because it's just borderline in terms of the profitability. What you can do is you can lower your bid, your base bid on the keyword or on the ASIN target, and proportionally increase your bid adjustment so that you just really focus very narrowly on this more profitable traffic and avoid a lot of the traffic that otherwise is not converting high enough or not making big enough orders to either break even or make your profit. And that's a way to just double down more on the cream, on skimming the cream in this tactic and avoiding a lot of the less profitable traffic. Now, I need to point out, and this is something he mentioned as well, but it's not a one-to-one relationship between your bid and your bid adjustment for an audience. So, for example, if your initial bid is $1 and you bring it down by 10%, it's not enough to then raise the bid by 10% or technically math-wise 11%, 12%, whatever, to get it back up to an equivalent bid of $1 with the bid adjustment, right? You can't just do 90-cent bid and 10% bid adjustment to make it equal to $1, even though mathematically that should make sense. In practice, bid adjustments don't actually get as much weight in Amazon's ad algorithm. So to get back to, let's say, $1 bid adjustment, $1 practical bid, you might need to make that bid, let's say, 90 cents, and then have an additional bid adjustment along the lines of plus 15, plus 20%, so that in practice you get to that $1 bid. Now, a third supercharging super profit strategy is you can take purchase brands products and combine that with defensive ASIN targeting or also with your brand keywords to help maintain brand loyalty. And you can get a similar result as well, although obviously not as powerful, with clicked or added to cart.
So now let's talk about still results and try to explain maybe some of the differences and also how to analyze the data so that you really appreciate the difference that you're audiences are making to your campaigns. So over here we have a click-through added brands product to cart audience, and you can see that the ACoS is only slightly better than the original. However, I will point out that the click-through rate is much, much higher, and so what this means is that you're getting increased market share, and that can also help you with the organic side of things, because that is mostly based on trailing 30 days sales volume. So this is on October, but if you look at how it was, let's say a little bit earlier in August, so this same campaign, the audience was doing significantly better. I want you to see those numbers, right? So 14.4% versus about 20% for the campaign totals. Okay, let's look at the next one. So to explain the difference, August for that product is more seasonal. So what's interesting is that a rising tide can lift all boats, right? But it has a greater effect on the lighter boats, so to speak. So when you have an audience targeting that improves your campaign, it's going to get an even bigger boost than the rest of the campaign when you're in season for your product. September, and these products are cheaper priced than the other one and did exceptionally well. You can see about 12% ACoS versus approximately 20%. That's a 40% improvement roughly in the ACoS, and you can see the comparison: 257 clicks out of a campaign total of 2,720 means it was about 10% of the clicks. But if you look at the orders, 33 out of 171, this is roughly 20% of the orders that we got, with less than 10% of the clicks. So that's quite an improvement in the conversion rate, and that translates, as you can see, to the sales, where the sales are 20% roughly of the dollar value of the total campaign sales. And again, the click-through rate is almost double. So again, this helps you to increase your market share and your volume of sales per month. See, in this campaign, we have the purchased brands product audience added, and unfortunately there's been quite minimal volume in comparison to 638 clicks. Even if I go more recently, it could be that we added that at the end of the month. If I look at this in October, excuse me, even just looking at the recent data after, it's obviously already been added if we had data in September, so obviously by October 1st the data should be added. So the conversion rate is nice, right? 40% conversion rate versus 57 out of 548, roughly 10%. But how much volume? We're getting 10 clicks and 4 orders, right? This is very low impact over here. But we know that this audience can help. Basically, this is a duplicate of that campaign. Like I was telling you guys, excuse me, I didn't tell you guys about that. That is coming up in the trap that you need to avoid so that you don't ruin your ACoS in your original campaigns. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. And so over here, again, you see a relatively minor improvement relative to the campaign performance as far as the ACoS goes. But I want you to pay attention to something. Look, our cost per click here is $1.15 versus $1 for the campaign total, which means that we're paying significantly more for this traffic, yet the ACoS is lower. What does that mean? That means that we're also making a lot more per click. The sales per click, or the revenue per click, if you divide your sales here by your 205 clicks, you're getting a lot more than the rest of the campaign is generating. Okay, over here we've got an ASIN defense targeting campaign, so we're targeting our own brand ASINs, and I want you to pay attention to something here. The click-through rate again is double, but look at what's going on. Our cost per click is almost 30 cents higher than the campaign total, and the ACoS, in spite of that, is 6% lower, right? This is about a third lower, 6/18 or 6/19, right? That's about 1/3 lower at 12%. And so this campaign is having a huge boost with the defensive targeting, with the audience on top of the defensive targeting. And it might be because this is the same idea, right? You're trying to bring back people who already clicked on your product to buy your products, and these are people essentially who have right now in fact clicked to come to your listing. Okay, over here we have a important point. This is an older campaign. You'll notice there's no bid adjustments tab over here. And that's because this campaign has been running for so long, as of this video, something closing on 4 years. So when Amazon rolled out audience targeting, it's only for campaigns created as of around 2023. So if you have your old campaigns, your old sponsored brands, they are telling you that you need to update to the new format. You need to basically duplicate the campaigns, or they won't be able to use the audience targeting. And I think we also saw notice to the effect that they might even archive the campaigns actually pretty soon, around the end of October. So you really want to get on that and making new campaigns so that A, you can use the audience targeting, and B, so that you don't just lose a bunch of sales if Amazon does go ahead with archiving campaigns. In the past, they said they were going to turn off also features in their system. They didn't end up turning them off. But do you want to gamble with your sales? I would say probably not. Here, I want you to see something interesting where, in fact, you don't always get a lower ACoS with the audience targeting. So you can see we've got 14.83% ACoS over here versus 13.7% for the campaign as a whole. In most cases that we've seen it is the case. Over here, I don't even know if it's really statistically meaningful, because if I look at October, the numbers are slightly reversed, and it's just a very low data rate, like 1 or 2 orders more for either one would have made a significant difference if the rest of the campaign had generated a couple extra orders over here. So the ACoS might have gone down enough to make a difference compared to the 11.5% and 13% over here. Or if we'd gotten 10 more clicks in this audience without getting a conversion, right? So that would be $100 in spend. And so the ACoS obviously would be less attractive. Now, one more point regarding this data analysis is you need to understand that campaign total doesn't reflect how the rest of the campaign performed. Campaign total includes your audience. Okay, so I want to show you that broken down in a spreadsheet in a moment. Okay, now let's calculate the stats for the rest of the traffic, but not including the audience targeting. So when you take that segment out, here's what the numbers look like. I did 16,799 impressions minus the click-through added to cart audience. That gives me about 14,500 impressions. Same thing for clicks, 457 minus 75 gives you 382 clicks. Now let's calculate the actual click-through rate for the rest of the traffic, okay? 2.64%. So you see that the click-through rate has actually been higher when you look at that. The spend here was 478. The difference in CPC would be, the actual CPC would be spend over clicks. So the rest of the traffic was actually costing $1.25, not $1.31. This is the blended average. Okay. The rest of the campaign generated 33 of the orders, sales of $2,200. And what that does is that gives us an ACoS of spend over sales being 21%. Okay. If you just compared this one over here of about 18% with 20%, you might think, okay, maybe it's 10% better. In fact, it's more than that. It's about 15% better when you look at the numbers properly like this. Over here, it doesn't make an enormous difference, but there are other campaigns where the data is different, and you'll see a much more significant difference between the ACoS for the rest of the campaign versus the ACoS for all the traffic together. Okay.
Now that I've explained how you do this, I need to warn you on the trap to avoid so you don't lose traffic to competitors. In both sponsored products and sponsored brands, you can only set one bid adjustment for an audience per campaign. So you can't raise bids both for new to brand and clicked or added to cart at the same time in the same campaign. You need to create duplicate campaigns if you want to target multiple audiences. However, when you duplicate a campaign exactly, that's a problem because of how Amazon's AI works. We've copied campaigns exactly and seen the new campaign perform worse. Now, how's that possible? It's the same product, the same ad, the same bid, everything. The only explanation is that Amazon's AI is doing an extra degree of targeting in the back end without it being visible to us. It appears that their AI learns what segments convert best for your product out of all the traffic you're targeting. For example, if you're targeting the keyword shoes to promote basketball shoes, you can choose to show the ad just to men, but they may buy more than women. So eventually Amazon figures that out, and it shows the ad just to men who search for shoes. even though your targeting officially says show my ad to anyone who searched for shoes. Now when you copy that campaign, Amazon's AI so it shows your basketball shoes to women again and performs worse than the original. Whatever the AI learned about the original campaign, it doesn't transfer automatically to the new duplicate. So if you copy the campaign exactly, you may not get the same performance. And if the traffic goes there instead of to the old campaign, you can lose sales if it does worse. And even when we paused the duplicate, sometimes we didn't get all the traffic back in the original. So you started with $1,000 in sales in the original, and you can end up with $500 afterwards, and maybe even at a higher ACoS as well. So to avoid the problem, when you duplicate a campaign for a new audience, you need to lower the bid. I would start at least 15% lower than the original so that the traffic doesn't move there entirely, right? You might get some, but hopefully you maintain most of your traffic in the original, but it's still worthwhile doing because the additional audience is expected to give you extra performance in that new campaign, lower ACoS, more profitability, and so on. So you need to be careful how you do that and monitor the results to see if the traffic is transferring over to the new campaign. If you're looking to improve the profitability of your Amazon PPC, we'll guarantee 20% increase in profitability in just 6 weeks, and it's free. So head to our website, 011adsforbrands.com. That's 11adsforbrands.com with a 0 at the start, and apply to see if you're a fit for us, and we can get started making your ads more profitable.